My life has been deemed successful by every metric society values. I am 80 years old, retired, affluent, and widely respected for my decades as a surgeon. Yet, if I could trade everything I have for one choice I didn't make, I would do it today without hesitation. The truth I carry is a paradox. I spent my life saving the bodies of strangers. I pulled them back from the edge and gave them second chances. But while I was stitching up broken flesh and mending bones, I was systematically destroying my own inner self. I killed the only person I was ever truly meant to be 60 years ago, and I have been living as her ghost ever since. The biggest lie I ever told was claiming I was happy. I was born with color in my hands. Before I could write my own name clearly, I could mix two pigments to create a third living shade. My sanctuary was the small, dusty corner of the basement where my easel stood. My first love wasn't a boy. It was the smell of turpentine and linseed oil filling the air. Wallace was my constant companion. That was the name I gave my first thick leather sketchbook. I filled him with everything I saw and everything I felt. It was a language only my soul understood. I felt intensely alive when I was creating. I had a vision for my life that involved galleries and dusty studios and the messy, beautiful chaos of true creation. This was my soul's calling, clear and undeniable. My mother Edith, however, believed art was a mere hobby for the destitute or the tragically unmoored. Harold, my father, only understood prestige. They had sacrificed everything, they reminded me constantly, so I could pursue a life of security and importance. Artists starve, Irene. Doctors thrive, my mother would state, her voice sharp as glass. Their entire sense of self was invested in the title, Dr. Irene. That was their masterpiece. They didn't see the canvas I longed to fill. They saw a pedestal waiting for their perfect daughter. The pressure was not shouted. It was a suffocating layer of expectation draped over every meal and every achievement I brought home from school. When I was 17, I received acceptance packets from the two schools that truly mattered. One was the highly competitive medical program at Northwestern. The other was the esteemed Rhode Island School of Design. I remember sitting alone in my bedroom, the two thick envelopes spread before me like diverging paths in a terrible fairy tale. I knew instantly which path was my truth and which was their obligation. I remember physically burying my sketchbook Wallace in the large cedar-lined trunk in the attic. I told myself I was just putting him away until summer, but deep down, I knew that trunk was not storage. It was the polished coffin for the woman I was meant to become, sealed shut by my own cowardice and guilt. The medical acceptance letter arrived first, conveniently. My parents threw a massive celebration, a shimmering victory party before the battle was even fought. I recall hiding the RISD letter in the pocket of my formal dress all night. It felt heavy and burning against my hip. That night, everyone toasted to Dr. Irene, the future healer, the genius daughter. I remember Harold holding me close, his eyes wet with pride, saying, "You made us so proud, Irene. You chose the path of substance." That warmth, that unconditional familial approval, was exactly what killed my courage. It was the highest price I ever paid for a single hug. I felt the lie solidify in my chest, heavy as marble. The boy I truly loved, who shared my artistic passion, wrote me a letter that week. His name was Arthur, but I always called him Wallace, too, after my book. He was heading to Europe to paint and study. He begged me to come, pleading for me to meet him in Paris with nothing but my brushes and a suitcase full of hope. He said we could starve together, but we would be free, living a life that truly belonged to us. My mother found his letter tucked under my mattress before I could even draft a reply. She didn't scream or argue, which was worse. Edith just looked at me with such profound, withering disappointment. Her gaze said I was throwing away everything she had ever worked for. She slid the letter back onto my bed. She just stood there in the doorway, blocking my escape, her shadow long in the afternoon sun. Then she said, very softly, "Irene, do you want to break your father's heart after all he has done for you? Do you want to be a pauper, dreaming of things that never last?" She made my soul feel selfish. She made my authentic self feel like a betrayal. I folded the RISD acceptance letter into the smallest square I could manage, then tore it into confetti. I didn't send a rejection. I just let the deadline pass. I chose the stethoscope over the brush, the sterile white coat over the paint-splattered apron. I chose my parents' expectations over my own existence. For 50 years, I was a successful, admired woman. I diagnosed and healed. I was rigorous and respected. I had a reputation for clinical excellence and emotional detachment. This detachment was necessary because the life I was living felt like performing open-heart surgery on myself every single day. I poured every ounce of my true passion, my desire for creation, into the technical complexity of medicine. I was brilliant, but I was fundamentally empty. I didn't hate my work, which made the lie even more insidious. I just knew that the hand wielding the scalpel was not the hand that was meant to be painting the world. I married a kind, practical man. We had 2 pleasant, well-adjusted children. We had a beautiful home filled with antique furniture and order. Everything was perfect on paper, meticulously crafted to withstand public scrutiny. But when I looked at the life I had built, all I saw was a highly functioning imposter, meticulously maintaining a facade. The joy was always muted. I couldn't allow myself true passion in case it cracked the perfect shell of Dr. Irene. I spent decades avoiding silence, filling my schedule with surgeries and committees, just so I wouldn't have to hear the desperate, scratching sound of my soul trying to get out. The silence always felt like condemnation. The quiet times were the absolute worst. Late at night, after a 12-hour shift, saving someone else's parent or child, I would stand in my pristine living room and feel nothing. I would look at the expensive art on the walls, art I bought to signal my good taste, and my stomach would clench. None of it felt real. I had helped hundreds of strangers breathe again. I had restored their futures, yet I couldn't breathe myself. My success felt like a heavy, suffocating blanket that was keeping me warm and comfortable while simultaneously starving me of air. The irony is bitter even now. I saved lives, yet I could not save my own life from emotional asphyxiation. Arthur, the boy I loved, Wallace, the boy who left for Paris, became successful. I saw his obituary years later, long after he had become a globally recognized artist. His work was revolutionary. The critics called him the painter of the human soul. I stared at his photograph, realizing that he had lived the life I abandoned, the messy, truthful life that was supposed to be mine. He painted the human soul. I just stitched up the human body. He saw life in color. I saw it in the sterile black and white of an X-ray. Knowing that the life I rejected thrived elsewhere without me has been the greatest spiritual pain of my existence. It is a persistent, low ache that never heals. My parents passed away 5 years ago, within months of each other. They died proud of Dr. Irene. They never knew the truth, and for that I am grateful and desperately sad. I fulfilled their dream entirely. Now I have all the time and all the accumulated wealth in the world. The freedom I sacrificed everything for finally arrived, but it arrived 60 years too late. I look out the window of my beautiful, silent house and realize I have no soul left to spend that time with. I won the game they forced me to play, but the prize is the hollow echo of what should have been. The silence is deafening now that their expectations are gone. I tried painting again 6 months ago. I retrieved Wallace from the attic trunk, still smelling faintly of cedar and dust. I bought the finest French oils and the most exquisite brushes money could buy. I set up the easel in my bright, sunlit study. But the colors felt dead in my hands. The inspiration, the youthful fire that fueled my spirit, had simply withered away. I realized that inspiration is not something you can place in a trunk for 60 years and expect to find waiting patiently when you return. It requires constant tending. The physical ability might linger, but the artistic necessity, the core impulse, died the day I chose prestige over my spirit. It was the hardest thing to admit. This is my final confession, the one I offer to you, the viewer, while I still have breath left. Do not let expectation become your executioner. Do not confuse approval with happiness. Listen intensely to the small, insistent voice inside you that knows what is real. That voice is your only compass in this terribly confusing, judgmental world. If you sacrifice your authentic soul for a life that looks good to others, you will find yourself, like me, sitting here at 80, drowning in regret. Your parents, your spouse, your friends, they will eventually fade, and you will be left alone with the true consequences of your choices. Protect that inner voice at all costs. You are not obligated to honor a dream that doesn't belong to you. Your life is not a vessel for your parents' unfulfilled desires or society's arbitrary rules of success. If you are choosing a path right now solely because it garners praise and security, stop immediately. Look at my hands. They are steady because they performed surgery for 50 years. But they are empty because they never painted the world I truly saw. Do not live a life of perfect order and quiet misery. If you waste your soul for external approval, you will end up exactly where I am now. 80 years old, sitting in silence, realizing that I saved everyone else, but tragically failed to save myself. Please, do not live my lie.